Welcome everybody to Houston, Texas, and here I am with my rental car for the week, a 2016, I think it's a 2016 Dodge Charger RT, 5.7 liter V8, rear wheel drive. This is going to be fun. Welcome to Texas. So I'm filming this review on multiple days, so please excuse the weird wardrobe changes and things like that. But this video is going to be 5 things that I love about the Dodge Charger and 5 things that I hate after driving it for a week as a rental car. So keep in mind it's a rental car. That's an important caveat. I think it's a pretty good looking big sedan. Ralph Giehl is the designer for this, and I respect a lot of the work he did. He's incorporated a lot of the cues from the Viper, which I think is a hell of a good looking car. And those cues work well on the Charger. It doesn't look as large as it is. I mean, it's the size as this GLA, which I think is horribly ugly. But side by side, one looks sleek and muscly, and the other just looks fat and dopey. The front grille is aggressive, as is the back. I'm not a big fan of the wheels on this model, but they're 5-spoke, which I prefer, and generally they look good. It's got these nice chrome tip dual exhausts, and overall it's a pretty well designed car. The styling might be a bit aggressive for the V6 version, since that's just a family car, but if you have the Hemi, then it's no joke. You're not posing for anything. I respect the hell out of a rear-wheel drive, front-engine V8 any day. As you can see, somebody has really been taking advantage of the rear-wheel drive. But I don't think it has a limited slip diff. Look at that. Compared to that. Somebody either blew out the other tire and they didn't bother to replace both, or we've been doing some peg leg burnouts. And my number one favorite part is, of course, the 5.7 liter V8. This is an awesome engine. It's an old engine, but hey, don't fix it if it's not broke, I guess. It doesn't make a lot of sense in the modern day of fuel regulations and things like that, but I love it. Someone told me recently that Dodges, they may not be the most soothing or the most modern cars, but they grab you by the balls. And I totally agree with that. Since it has such a long wheelbase, it rides pretty well. And the suspension isn't too hard. I mean, it's based off of an old Mercedes platform, so it's going to be fairly comfortable just because of the chassis. But then the seats, even these cloth seats, are not too bad. They're soft cloth. They're a bit firm, but they feel good. The contouring on the seats is pretty good. And even the rear seats give you plenty of legroom and plenty of adjustability too. The steering wheel feels great in the hands. It's fat and has this really nice sort of soft leather feel to it. As you can see, the design language here is a little bit outdated. I would like to see Chrysler put in a more updated, more clean-cut look to this display. It's the same thing that they've had since I worked at Chrysler like 4 years ago. And I think it's time for an update. To be fair, all the systems work really well. I would say in terms of functionality and reliability, it's better than Sync 3 on my Ford. However, Sync 3 has a more clean, modern aesthetic than this. The number 4 thing I love is these paddle shifters. These are a heck of a lot of fun to mess around with. All you have to do is hit the transmission into drive and then over into manual, and you can shift up and down at will. And let me tell you, shifting down to second gear when you're going about 30 miles an hour and punching it, that is a lot of fun. It's a big car, so you want to be able to see where you're going, but the visibility out the back and along the sides is pretty awful. And if it's a rental car like this and you don't have a rear view camera, then that makes it pretty nerve-wracking when you're trying to back in somewhere. There's a ton of blind spots everywhere. Big pillars on either side, big A-pillars as well, that fill up your whole field of vision sometimes. And overall, the visibility has a lot of room for improvement. The transmission. Luckily, it's not the killer transmission that would shift forward and then snap back to a center position. This one will actually stay where you put it, so you're not going to kill yourself the way that poor guy did in his Jeep Grand Cherokee. However, it's still a little bit clunky feeling, but my issue is more with the speed of the transmission and the responsiveness of it. When you really want to go fast, which you want to do often in a car with a 5.7 liter V8, you hit the gas and it takes a little bit longer than you'd like to shift down and give you the push that you want. And unfortunately, while you do have these awesome paddle shifters, which are a lot of fun to mess around with, there's no automatic sport mode. That's something that I really like on all the Fords that aren't hybrids. You have a sport mode that'll keep it in a lower gear than it normally would. And that gives it a little bit more pep to its step. And at least this model doesn't have that. You have to shift into manual mode in order to get lower gears than what automatic will give you automatically. The interior is comfortable, but it's starting to look a little bit dated. Maybe that's just the cloth interior from the rental car, but it's a bit old and it's starting to show. Now, maybe I'm being hypocritical because I said I liked the fact that it has an old engine, but there's some modern things that I would like to see. I said earlier that it looks much smaller than it actually is, but when you're actually driving it, it feels huge. Part of that is due to the fact that you have bad visibility, but part of it is just because it's a big old car. And it feels kind of lumbering when you're going around corners. It's not very nimble. I would say the Taurus Show I had was even more nimble than this. And that makes coming out of corners fun because you spin the rear tires and it kind of whips around a little bit, but it's not as much fun as a lighter, more modern chassis would be. So overall, guys, I've had an awesome week in this car. It's been a blast driving a V8, which is the best way to do an engine outside of maybe a V12, but a V8 rear-wheel drive American muscle car, but also a family sedan. I like that concept a lot. So I love the Charger. I love the Chrysler 300. They're pretty much the same cars. I think I completely agree with my coworker who said that a Dodge grabs you by the balls. A Ford, for instance, the Ford Taurus Show, which is the most comparable car that I've reviewed on this channel, that car more seduces you. It's smooth and it's more subtle. This is just, bam, American muscle. I don't know which car is faster. This car certainly feels faster. Maybe that's just because of the kick you get when you hit the gas in second gear. But I have to say that it's not as good of a car as the Taurus Show. So the Taurus Show is nicer on the inside. It's more fuel efficient. It'll be more comfortable on long rides probably. It's got better technology. It's got more modern everything really. And overall, you have to admit it's a better car. But at the end of the day, I personally get much more of a smile from this car. And the way I rate cars is more of smiles per mile. And this by far beats the Taurus Show on smiles per mile. So it's one of those things where the heart likes the Charger, the head not so much. But if someone asks me, should I buy a Charger RT I'm gonna probably say, yeah, do it, because it's so much fun. Thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate you guys hitting that subscribe button, hit that like button too, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.